Critical thinking is an essential skill for all wannabe lawyers. Lawyers who can ask great questions, determine what information is essential, and quickly discount false assumptions are those that are going to thrive. Given this, many law firms require applicants to undertake an aptitude or psychometric test designed to assess your ability to quickly understand and digest detailed scenarios. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth, and on this channel we discuss the strategies and tools that help us to navigate our law degrees successfully and become fantastic lawyers. Now today I want to talk about the test that basically all law firms use, and that is the Watson-Glaser test. I'm going to begin by explaining what the Watson-Glaser test actually is, and then I'm going to break down the 5 distinct sections of the test before talking about how you can use the RED model of critical thinking to help you perform really well. The Watson-Glaser test is the leading critical thinking test used by law firms to help them to whittle down the number of applicants who are applying to their training contracts and vacation schemes. Such firms that use the Watson-Glaser include Allen & Overy, Clifford Chance, Linklaters and Hogan Lovells. So there's definitely a number of big law firms that are using it to help them in their application process. Although they may seem like an unnecessary and burdensome step in your path to becoming a lawyer, they are designed to test a number of skills that your degree and interview cannot properly measure, particularly your ability to logically and rationally consider information. So it's worth spending some time understanding the test and learning the tools that you can use to succeed. There are 5 key sections to the Watson-Glaser test, and each of them require a slightly different approach to thinking, and they are as follows. Firstly, assessment of inferences. Secondly, recognizing assumptions. Thirdly, deduction. Fourthly, interpretation, and finally, evaluation. Let's look at each of them in turn. An inference is the formation of a conclusion from facts and reasoning. So even though something may not be directly stated, you can still draw a conclusion from it. For example, if someone owned a Lamborghini, we could reach the conclusion that they are rich. However, this isn't necessarily true. For example, they could have just rented the supercar from somewhere, or they could have been borrowing it from a friend. So the inferences we make can mean that we lead to the wrong conclusions. In the Watson-Glaser test, you'll be given a statement that you assume to be true and a number of possible inferences based on that statement. Your job is to decide whether each inference is definitely true, probably true, there's insufficient data, probably false, or definitely false. An assumption is something that we take or accept as being true without any proof. For example, we could say that at the end of this year, I will receive a paycheck and bonus from my law firm. This assumes that you will still be working at the law firm, that the law firm will still be operational, and that your performance justifies the receiving of a bonus. In the Watson-Glaser test, you need to show that you're capable of avoiding false assumptions by analysing a statement and deciding whether or not a corresponding assumption has been made. Deduction is the process of drawing logical conclusions from scenarios by reference to a general law or principle. So for example, if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then we could say that A is equal to C by deduction. However, there are occasions where deduction isn't so straightforward and it means we reach the wrong conclusion. For example, if I said that all men have brains and all humans have brains, I could deduce from that therefore all humans are men. But we know as a general fact that this isn't true. In the Watson-Glaser test, you'll be given a statement that you must assume to be true, and you have to decide whether or not a set of given conclusions logically follows from the statement. An interpretation is the act of explaining, reframing, or generally understanding a particular situation. So in the Watson-Glaser test, for example, you'll look at a situation and try to understand it, and then decide whether or not a certain conclusion can be reached. This is similar to deduction, but with interpretation, you're looking for significant pieces of information that can be used in support of a conclusion. For example, let's say you're told that the growth in a child's vocabulary from ages 8 months to 6 years old increases from 0 words to 2,562 words. From this, we can conclude that none of the children learn to talk by the age of 6 months. The final category of questions expects individuals to determine the relative strength of an argument. So you'll be given an argument and you're going to have to decide whether or not you think it's a strong argument or whether you think it's a weak argument. It's extremely important that you disregard your own personal knowledge and your own personal feelings when answering evaluation questions. You just have to go with the facts and the information in front of you. An example of an evaluation question would look like this. To perform really well in the Watson-Glaser test, you really need to understand the RED model of critical thinking, which is what the Watson-Glaser test is based around. And if you understand this method of thinking, you have this systematic approach to the way you learn, you're inevitably going to perform really well. The RED model stands for recognizing assumptions, evaluating arguments, and drawing conclusions. It is these three things that should organize your thinking and your practice for the Watson-Glaser test. This is all about your understanding of the material and reaching conclusions as to whether or not the information is true or false. It is about looking at information critically, ensuring that logic is coherent, and questioning any given assumptions. If you can, it's important to try and look at information from a number of different perspectives so that you can avoid bias, and be on the lookout for any logical inconsistencies. So when practicing for the Watson-Glaser test, it's really important that you try and recognize assumptions while reading the newspaper and journal articles. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Does what they say logically follow from one point to the next, or is there a gap in their logic? What information should be included that could make their argument stronger? Begin critically appraising everything that you read. This is all about looking at an argument from a detached, impartial perspective and casting an objective eye over it. A lot of people look at what they read with a very emotional head and they think, God, this doesn't conform to my own personal opinions, and they get very hot-headed about things that they disagree with. Instead, you should try to detach yourself, remove yourself from the situation and try to balance and evaluate both sides of the argument. It's easy to accept an argument written in a textbook or article, especially given the fact that they are the supposed experts, but you need to avoid this at all costs. All arguments will have weaknesses and you need to root these out. When preparing for the Watson-Glaser test, don't read any information without questioning the evidence. Do you actually believe in what is being said? What is the relative strength of the argument? Is the author biased in some way? Have a think for yourself, really understand the arguments, be comfortable debating both sides of a topic, and don't just accept something because you've believed it for a very long time. The final aspect of the RED model of critical thinking expects individuals to be able to bring a large amount of information together and draw a nice, neat conclusion from it. Furthermore, individuals who are good at reasoning should be able to take on new information and use that to adapt their current thinking. So if a new piece of information challenges the way that you think about a certain topic, then you should be comfortable to change your mind about it. So to build up the necessary skills and to be successful in the Watson-Glaser in this area, make sure that you try to draw conclusions from whatever you read, whether that's a newspaper, a journal article, or maybe just a blog post on the internet. Once you've read a blog post, for instance, try summarising the main arguments or facts into a coherent one-sentence summary. If an essay reaches a certain conclusion, have a think about whether or not any other conclusion could have been reached. What new or different information could have been introduced that would change your conclusion? What are the wider implications of the conclusion that you eventually reach? There are no right or wrong answers on the most part, but you have to have the confidence to think independently. The Watson-Glaser test is only truly problematic to those individuals who haven't put in the practice, and also to those individuals who haven't incorporated a systematic process of thinking. So whenever you're scrolling through your social media or looking at a blog post or reading the newspaper, make sure you try to think critically about it using that RED model of critical thinking. And if you do this, you're going to have no problem at all scoring high marks in the Watson-Glaser test. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you check out my playlist on crafting awesome law applications. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful and I shall see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.